Imagine a Zen garden where carefully arranged stones rest on raked sand, forming fluid, harmonious patterns. Then a gentle wind blows, reshaping those patterns, yet the garden remains tranquil and complete. This simple image carries a profound message. Tranquility is not the absence of disruption, but the ability to find balance amidst it. Now think of your mind as this garden. Anxiety is like the wind that scatters the sand. You cannot stop the wind, but you can observe its dance and rebuild your sense of order. Anxiety is something many of us face daily. It can manifest as a tightness in your chest during a difficult conversation or an endless cycle of what-ifs before you fall asleep. Picture yourself rushing through traffic on a busy day, the clock ticking loudly in your mind. Thoughts race through your head. What if I'm late? What if I disappoint someone? Your heart races, your breath quickens, and you feel as though time itself is your enemy. But imagine if, in that moment, you paused. Instead of succumbing to the pressure, you took a deep breath, focused on the air entering your lungs, and gave yourself permission to simply exist. That single breath could create a space of calm, a chance to steady yourself amid the storm. Matthias was someone who lived in that constant storm of anxiety. A diligent professional admired for his work ethic, Matthias appeared confident on the surface, but inside he felt as though he was drowning. Nights were sleepless, filled with worries about unfinished projects and the fear of failure. One day, during a critical meeting, the pressure became unbearable. He froze, his chest tightened, and panic took over. He left the room abruptly, feeling defeated. Outside, in a nearby park, he sat on a bench and saw an elderly woman observing the trees with a serene expression. Intrigued by her calm presence, Matthias sat next to her. Noticing his distress, the woman asked, "Are you running from something, or are you running toward something?" Her words struck a chord. She continued, "When the wind blows, running won't help. Better to stop and listen." Matthias didn't fully understand her meaning at first, but the simplicity of her presence stayed with him. That evening, he decided to try something different. He set aside 5 minutes before bed to sit in silence and focus on his breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and exhale for 6. At first, his mind rebelled, racing with thoughts about deadlines and responsibilities. But over time, he noticed a subtle shift. His thoughts were like leaves floating down a stream. Instead of chasing them, he let them pass. This practice became his anchor, a small but powerful way to reclaim his peace. Clara's relationship with anxiety was different but equally challenging. As an artist, Clara poured her heart into every piece she created, but she was her harshest critic. She could never shake the feeling that her work wasn't good enough. Each brushstroke seemed to carry the weight of her self-doubt. Seeking inspiration, Clara visited a Zen temple. During her visit, a monk invited her to participate in a walking meditation. As they walked slowly through the garden, he handed Clara a small stone and said, "Carry this as you walk. It is not perfect, but it is complete." Clara spent weeks meditating with the stone, reflecting on its imperfections. She began to see her own flaws not as failures, but as part of her humanity. When she returned to the temple, she handed the stone back to the monk and said, "I still see the flaws, but they don't weigh me down anymore." The monk smiled and replied, "You've learned that peace isn't found in perfection, it's found in acceptance." These stories illustrate that anxiety isn't an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be understood. Zen teaches us that anxiety, like the wind, comes and goes. It's not permanent, and it doesn't define us. One of the simplest and most powerful tools Zen offers is mindful breathing. When we breathe deeply and intentionally, we activate the body's relaxation response, shifting from panic to calm. But breathing is only the beginning. Zen teaches us to bring mindfulness into everyday tasks. Imagine pouring yourself a cup of tea. Instead of rushing through the action, You pause to feel the warmth of the cup, hear the gentle sound of the liquid being poured, and savor the aroma. This simple act becomes a moment of presence, grounding you in the here and now. Or consider walking through a park. Rather than letting your mind drift to your to-do list, you focus on the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, the rustling of leaves, and the rhythm of your steps. These practices may seem small, but they're transformative. They remind us that life is happening now, not in the regrets of the past or the worries of the future. Another central principle of Zen is acceptance. Often, anxiety arises because we resist what we cannot control. We want life to fit neatly into our expectations, but life is inherently unpredictable. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up, it means letting go of the struggle against what is. Imagine holding a tightly clenched fist. Over time, the tension becomes exhausting. But when you release your grip, you feel relief. Acceptance is like that release. It doesn't change the situation, but changes how you experience it. The idea of impermanence is another cornerstone of Zen philosophy. Just as seasons change and flowers bloom and wither, our emotions are fleeting. When anxiety feels overwhelming, it's comforting to remember, this too shall pass. Knowing that no state is permanent can bring perspective and hope. Imagine standing by the ocean, watching the waves roll in and out. The tide is constant, but each wave is unique and temporary. Our emotions are much the same. Silence is another gift Zen offers. In a world that values constant activity and noise, silence can feel uncomfortable, even intimidating. But in silence, we find clarity. Set aside 5 minutes a day to sit quietly, without distractions. At first, your mind might resist, filling the silence with thoughts. But over time, you'll begin to hear something deeper, the sound of your own presence. Zen also teaches us that we are not separate from the world around us. Anxiety often makes us feel isolated, as though we're carrying our burdens alone. But when we recognize our interconnectedness, our perspective shifts. Think of a single drop of water. On its own, it seems insignificant, but in the ocean, it becomes part of something vast and powerful. Likewise, we're all part of something greater, and this connection can be a source of strength. Anxiety is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. It invites us to pause, to reflect, and to grow. Through practices like mindful breathing, meditation, and acceptance, we can transform our relationship with anxiety. We learn to see it not as a storm to fear, but as a reminder to return to ourselves. Today, I invite you to take a small step. Spend a few moments breathing mindfully. Walk slowly and notice each step. Observe your thoughts without judgment. And if this message resonates with you, share it with someone who might also be seeking calm. Together, we can create a world where inner peace is stronger than external noise.